Proposition 20. My name is Angelica Salas, Executive Director of the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles, and I'm here joined with Latino leaders with a very forceful stand on Proposition 20, which is no. We can't move, we can't go back, we must move forward. I want to first welcome all our members of the press and give you some instructions as to how you will be able to ask questions and how we're going to proceed. I will be introducing all the speakers as who will be presenting as to why they stand against Proposition 20. You can ask questions by using the chat function as well as the Q&A function. We will be monitoring those two features in order to then, at the end of the press conference, help answer your questions. We will be, this is a bilingual press conference. Our majority of our comments will be in English with summaries at the end. However, I also want to let you know that at the end of or during our Q&A section, you can also ask a question in Spanish directed to one of our speakers, and we will fully answer that question in Spanish. And with that, I want to just begin by stating that Chirla is here with our colleagues against Proposition 20 because we know that this will hurt our community. We stand for a just society that is fully inclusive of immigrants. And so I am joined here with my brothers and sisters who know that we cannot go back against all the gains that we have done around criminal justice, and that the Proposition 20 that is in the California ballot we have to have a united Latina stand on this proposition. We say no to Proposition 20 because this proposition is rooted in and comes from a desire to revert back to the failed policies of the past that have resulted in California's mass incarceration crisis and the unfair targeting of Black and Brown communities. We say no on Proposition 20 because this is a proposition that's misguided and it is not informed by what works best to stop the cycles of crime. This issue is really important to us at Chirla because research tells us that compared with other Californians, Latinx Californians are a third more likely to be arrested for a felony or sentenced to a felony probation, twice as likely to be in prison or jail. Being arrested, convicted, and sentenced in prison, jails and probation for crimes can have such negative consequences to our community. A past conviction can limit Latinx Californians' ability to get a job and to contribute to our economy. For us at Chirla, we stand against Proposition 20 because we know a past conviction for Latinx immigrants also puts them in danger of deportation and separation from their families, for many for a lifetime. The current system in place disproportionately targets and arrests than convicts people of color. What would happen if Proposition 20 were to pass? Well, California's prison population would once again increase significantly, and we would be back to wasting millions of taxpayer dollars every year on our broken prison system. California's focus should be on successfully implementing the recent reforms and building upon them, not taking steps that will lead to once again having overcrowded state prisons in violation of federal court orders. So Proposition 20 will just make things worse. Research indicates that if Proposition 20 were to be implemented, the effect on the Latinx community would be significantly. And currently, Latinx community are more likely to be arrested for a felony than a misdemeanor as compared to other ethnic groups. And as such, 1 in 5 Latinx people are arrested would be impacted, and with increases from misdemeanors to felonies for those offenses impacted by Proposition 20. This would actually increase the rates of people in jail and in prison. For this reasons, I am here to say no, no on Proposition 20. And so we're asking all our Latino brothers and sisters, our Latinas sisters, just to say no to this proposition. We are done with this kind of discrimination in the criminal justice system. Brevemente en español, lo que les quiero decir a toda nuestra comunidad es que aquí estamos unidos diferentes organizaciones latinas y también líderes latinos y latinos diciéndole no a la proposición 20. Nosotros sabemos muy bien que esta proposición va a impactar a nuestra comunidad de una manera negativa. Nos va una vez más regresar a incrementar la población en las cárceles, pero muchas de las personas que son injustamente arrestados y después también puestos en la cárcel es nuestra comunidad inmigrante latina y a nuestra comunidad latina. ¿Qué quiere decir, verdad? Si tienes una felonía porque fuiste injustamente arrestado y también encarcelado con sentencias de felonías, pues quiere decir que ya no vas a tener las mismas oportunidades de trabajo y de poder sostener a tu familia. Nosotros estamos en contra de la proposición 20 porque también sabemos que si tú tienes una convicción de felonía, eres deportable. Eso significa la separación de familias, significa que tú no vas a poder estar en este país hasta por toda tu vida. Entonces las consecuencias son muy dolorosas y son muy penosas para nuestra comunidad. Así que le pedimos a toda nuestra comunidad que le diga no a la proposición 20 y que se una con los líderes latinos, las organizaciones latinas, diciendo que esta proposición se tiene que derrotar en estas elecciones el 3 de noviembre. So now joining us, it is such an honor for me to have an incredible leader of our community join us, who also wants to stand against Proposition 20. It is my honor to introduce Dolores Huerta. Dolores Huerta is the president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation and co-founder of the United Farm Workers. And we all know her as a champion, a civil rights champion of our nation. Please help me welcome Dolores Huerta.
Thank you very much, Angelica, and I want to thank everybody that's joined in this important press conference today. You know, the people of California have spoken. They voted for Prop 37 and 57 in the last election because they knew that we have too many people in prison that shouldn't be there. And it is really sad that the law enforcement community is pushing this because they know that they make more money when they keep people in prison. And that money comes from the taxpayers of California. So we don't want to go there anymore. We have voted already to make many of these felonies, turn them into misdemeanors. And we know that this does not protect violent criminals. Those are still major felony convictions. I like to quote Jesse Jackson, who once said, "It takes more money to keep somebody in jail than it takes to send them to Yale," you know, and I'm talking about the University, Yale. And so this is what we have to think about, that this is taxpayer dollars that are keeping people in prison. We don't want to have that reputation in California that we are the state that has more people in prison. Right now, we have less people in prison since 1990. And I think that is something that we really have to be proud of. And we have to continue that record. We have seen so many people protesting on the streets. They want to see our tax dollars go to more counselors, family counselors, to mental health, all of the things that prevent people from going to prison, more money to come into our schools. And so, you know, we really have to really reject this Proposition 20. It is ill-founded. The intention is wrong. We don't need more people in prison. And as Angelica said earlier, it really impacts upon our communities of color more than anybody else. They don't have the money to hire attorneys to defend them. And we know they have to depend on public defenders who, I'm not saying they don't do a good job, but they have a lot of people that they have to defend. So this is a proposition that is aimed directly against our communities of color. And we are saying, as representatives of the Latino community, you know what? We're not going to let you get away with this. We're going to tell people to vote no. We want to keep the prison population down. We want only those people that need to be in prison to be in prison, not everybody else. So please, we're saying to all of the people out there, please vote against Proposition 20, and we need your help to do this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dolores Huerta. Now it is my honor to introduce another champion of our community, Senator Maria Elena Durazo, who represents Los Angeles in the State Senate. Adelante, Maria Elena.
Okay. Gracias, Angélica, y mucho gusto de ver a todos, especialmente mi héroe, Dolores Huerta. You know, the route, as Angélica said, of Prop 20 is to take us backwards, take us back to policies that have failed, takes us back to where mass incarceration was growing and growing and growing, and obviously hitting Latino and Black communities, people of color, hardest of all. We suffer, our families suffer, our communities suffer when there's mass incarceration of our youth who end up being in there, and this cycle of incarceration. It is misguided. It's not based on what works best. And if this initiative were to pass, we would be going back again, increasing incarceration, spending taxpayer dollars on a criminal justice system that didn't work. It didn't work for the community, didn't work for the taxpayers, didn't work for poor people, for immigrants, for people of color, our youth, for victims of crime. And it doesn't even work for law enforcement. Let's be honest about it. So what's the point? What's the point? California's focus should be on the reforms, building on them, going forward, and not backwards. And Prop 20 takes us backwards. We want California's crime rates to go down. It shows that it's going down, and especially Latinos. 3 million Latino Californians already have a past conviction, and they expect, imagine this, there's already a prediction that 1 in 6 Latino men are expected to go to prison in their lifetime. That's a terrible prediction to make. We should be predicting how many less are going to be going. The pride of them being able to do what every other Californian and American wants to do, have a good life. So I've spent my entire adult life with hardworking men and women, and yet they are poor. They're struggling to make ends meet. They're trying to raise their sons and daughters the best they can, but they don't have the tools for their kids to have the same opportunities as wealthy white families. Now is the time to prioritize in people, in our families, in our children, in our youth, in education. That's what's going to prevent crime from occurring in the first place and stop this insane cycle of incarceration. Solo quiero decir que yo sé que todos los días nuestras familias, latinos y otros, trabajan tan duro para darle lo mejor para sus hijos, pero no tienen todas las herramientas, no tienen los recursos en nuestra comunidad que necesitan. No vamos a tomar pasos atrás, vamos adelante. Por eso decimos no a la proposición 20. Gracias.
Gracias, Maria Elena. Chirla in 2006 worked with so many different organizations who are fighting for criminal justice reform, for simple justice. And through our efforts, we passed Proposition 57. So Proposition 57 allowed for increasing parole and good behavior opportunities for people convicted of nonviolent crimes, and allowing judges, not prosecutors, to decide on whether to try certain juveniles as adults in court. And so I want now to introduce to you Armando Martin, who benefited from Proposition 57, to tell us why a no on Proposition 20 right now, why he's asking no on Proposition 20, and why that is so important for his own life. Adelante, Armando.
Thank you. First of all, I'm honored to be in front of a panel of incredible human beings that give voice to the voiceless. I finally have a voice, and I thank you guys for that. So I'm a beneficiary of Prop 57. I was afforded the opportunity to get out of prison early. I've always been incarcerated for petty crimes, and they always give me years for it, and it wasn't just. When I get out, you know, after a certain time of being in there. You want to do good. You want to be an impact for your family, for your, your kids, your mother, those that are near and dear to you. But it was just such a struggle not being able to get a job because of my conviction, not being able to provide for my family. Well, when Prop 57 came out, there was a light on the tunnel. There was hope, not just for me. I was speaking on behalf of a lot of people that I got to meet in there that were gravitating towards the same goals. So I used to waste my time in prison. We never had nothing in there. Well, now Prop 57 opened the doors for us to educate ourselves, to go to colleges, to go get programs to deal with the root issues of why we do the things that we do. And in the midst of that, I started networking with like-minded people who wanted to get out, who wanted to do good, who wanted to work. And so I started utilizing my time studying and getting into programs, not wasting my time in there, communicating with my family and letting them know, look, I got a certificate for this, I got a certificate for that. Look, I might be getting out soon now. After a couple of years of doing my part, we finally had the opportunity to get out. Fast forward, I got out in half the time I was supposed to do. I got out, instead of doing 9 years, which they were trying to give me, I got 4 years and I got out. Right now, I'm working because of all the networking and because of the tools that I've acquired. I'm able to make an impact on my family, my daughter. I have a granddaughter now, and I'm gonna have a grandson soon. My mother, who used to see me vandalize and destroy, things around me, relationships, my life, the city. Now she gets to witness me build. So do my family. I work in a union. I make living wages. Last year, I got out of prison at the beginning of last year. Right now, I'm making living wages. I mean, I'm working in one of the biggest projects in the United States right now as we speak. And it's because it's paved the way. Prop 57 paved the way. I networked with people. I network with real life organizations. I'm a real life statistic of Prop 57. And not only me, because it's not about me anymore. And it's opened my eyes. It's about my family. It's about and the generations of families, my mother, my daughter, my brothers and sisters, those in my sphere of influence. And I've hooked up with organizations that are giving a voice to everyone. So this prop is gonna destroy that. It's gonna repeat that recidivism that I went through all the younger generations, and we don't deserve that. We deserve better opportunities. We should be living to push forward, getting jobs, making living wages. It doesn't matter what you were arrested for. What matters is, what are you doing now? What are your plans? What are your goals? How are you gonna get that? How are you gonna make that done? We start networking. We start doing these things, what we're doing now, voting against things that will destroy our families and destroying our goals and our future. Right now, it's just the beginning. I still have months and years to build upon my life. It's just, I'm speechless when it comes to the things the doors that have opened because of Prop 57. And this can grow, but we all have to put our part. We have to shine light in the darkness. Please, vote no on Prop 20. Do it for our people, for our communities, do it for our nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Armando, for sharing your story. And this is what we're about. We're about transformation of lives for the better, not about punishment and more punishment and lack of opportunity. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Next to speak about why we have to stand against Proposition 20 is Jose Carmona, who's the policy advisor at Unidos US, and he's our representative of Unidos US here in California. Welcome.
Good
Jose.
morning. Thank you, Angelica. My name is Jose Carmona, and I'm the policy advisor for Unidos US. As Angelica noted, we are a national-based Latino organization in Washington, D.C. with the state office in California. We serve the Latino community through our research, policy analysis, state and national advocacy efforts, and have a very robust programmatic set of initiatives and activities where we work explicitly with Latino communities nationwide through a network of service providers, with the largest being here based in California. This year's swath of national and global protests against racial injustice has compelled Unidos US to engage on the issue and ensure that reforms to reduce the over-incarceration of Latinos in California are protected. Unidos US stands in solidarity with our African-American brothers and sisters in seeking accountability and justice. For Latinos, our current analysis shows that data collection and reporting in the criminal justice system is inconsistent and incomplete. It is almost impossible to account for all police interactions with Latinos, violent or not, because of a severe lack of disaggregated demographic data collected by law enforcement databases. Most agencies only record demographic data using race binaries, Black or white, and ignore ethnicity altogether. More still, it is typical for officers to record demographic data without even asking the individual. This is true for the entirety of our criminal justice system. From law enforcement interactions to the prison and correctional systems, white passing Latinos are generally marked as white, and Afro-Latinos are typically recorded as simply Black. Like Black communities, Latino communities are often poor, racially and socially isolated, and heavily policed and surveilled. These communities often tend to distrust law enforcement, both local police and federal agencies, like Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and Customs and Border Patrol, for additional reasons related to immigration enforcement. A small qualitative study conducted by Unidos US sought to document Latino attitudes and perceptions. Here are some of the findings. Many participants perceive the police's role as unfair, stating that they protect wealthy white neighborhoods while surveilling and criminalizing and neglecting communities of color. Police culture, broadly speaking, was characterized as over-aggressive, trigger-happy, and militarized. Fears around aggressive policing and profiling generate a significant lack of trust in the police. Participants describe feeling in between fires, exposed to crime in their own neighborhoods, but afraid to call or rely on the police. Unidos US is proud to stand in solidarity with fellow California-based Latino organizations and ask for the California Latino community to vote no on Proposition 20.
Thank you so much, Jose. I now want to introduce our next speaker, Yessi Ortiz, and Yessi is radio host and music director at 97.1 AMP Radio. Welcome, Yessi.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for allowing me to share this space with everyone. So, when I'm thinking about this proposition and how it lowers a dollar amount to $250 to be considered as a felony, to me, that's mind-blowing. I think about a young mom who wasn't taught the proper tools of knowing how to deal with emotions or conflict due to various reasons, underserved communities, low-income families, a history of trauma. It could be a lot of many things. And they end up stealing children's clothes or diapers as a result of that. My sister was one of those moms who was caught stealing at a department store for children's clothing and not realizing the consequences that it would have on her. If this was to take place, if this proposition would have passed back in the days, I can't even imagine how this would have affected her now. Now that she's in her 40s, life hasn't really been easy for her, and she's made her mistakes and she's learned from them. There's a lot of stories like that, I think, in our communities where, as young women and so many people, the idea of, you do the crime, you do the time, that can't be the solution here. As we think about the many folks now on unemployment and your son or daughter needing a pair of shoes and they don't want to ask you for the money because they know that you are also struggling, or clothes for school. To me, this proposition is a direct target to young adults. And we should support them through rehabilitation, allocate those funds to support such services. My son was also someone who was facing some challenges in his life. And, because I was such an advocate for mental health, I made sure that he got those support systems that he needed. But not every parent understands that mental health services are important. We need to educate our people. More stories like Armando is what we need in this climate. The trauma that this proposition could have on them and the families, it's really painful to see, and sleepless nights. And we know that once you're in the criminal system, you'll always be a target. You'll always be told that you're not good enough, that you are not worthy enough. You're not worthy enough to overcome. And the reality is that you are. This this is a message that I want to send. I want to see more stories like Armando, who shared his stories earlier. And that's how we should want to see nuestra gente succeed that way. This problem is a real problem. And I say no to Proposition 20. That's why I'm saying no to Proposition 20.
Thank you so much, Yessi, for sharing your story. Our last speaker, a very important person in our community, is Alex Sanchez. He's the Executive Director of Homies Unidos. And Homies Unidos was formed in 1996 to defend the inherent right of youth, families, and their communities to pursue their dreams and achieve their full potential in a just and safe and healthy societies. Welcome, Alex.
Gracias por tenerme. I oppose Proposition 20 because I work directly with those that are incarcerated. I get calls, I get mail every day of folks that are excited that they are now having an opportunity to be released and are preparing themselves for that reentry back into their communities. If we roll back what Prop 47, Prop 57, AB 109 have done to our communities in regards to really providing a reentry plan for those that are incarcerated, we are just going to mass incarcerate people again as we did in prior decades. Right now, we have people in prisons that have been reduced populations that are in a crisis behind coronavirus. People are dying every day because they cannot have that social distance. Now, can you imagine overpacking the prisons again by individuals during a pandemic, during a crisis that we know is gonna last through next year or more? We need to fight this, and we need to speak out, and we need to have our Latino people understand that the supporters of this Proposition 20 have been correctional officers, police that belong to police agencies. I go and I speak with some of those correctional officers, and they worry about their jobs. They worry that prisons are getting closed, and intentionally to keep their jobs, they're starting to put people together. They're getting conflict. This is about job security for those that work in the criminal justice system, those that make money out of us being incarcerated. As a formerly incarcerated person, I know that the only way that I was able to leave that mentality was that I got support from people in community. So the support needs to be the main focus in this if we want to reduce mass incarceration. This Proposition 20 will take away many of the resources inside the prison, already little resources that exist inside the prisons for rehabilitation, because it'll be focused in continuing this mass incarceration and job security for those correctional officers. So I oppose Prop 20 for that and many other reasons that's going to impact our community. So I'll say this in Spanish. So mi nombre es Alex Sánchez, yo opongo la Proposición 20 porque como una persona ex encarcelada, yo pude cambiar mi vida cuando se me presentó la oportunidad de rehabilitarme con servicios y oportunidades de gente que me dio. La Proposición 20 nos lleva a lo que fue hace décadas, donde el enfoque era encarcelar masivamente a gente por cualquier cosa. La Proposición 47, la Proposición 57 y la AB 109, lo que hizo fue empezar a enfocarse en aquellos que tenían delitos menores que no tenían que estar presos y enfocarse en cómo a ellos presentarlos a programas para rehabilitación. Eso es lo que hemos logrado. Ahorita los procuradores tienen todas las herramientas necesarias para juzgar a cualquiera que cometa un crimen agravante. Cualquier persona que cometa algo serio, que ir a alguien, se va a ir a prisión. Las proposiciones que se pasaron anteriormente era para aquellos ofensas leves. Y la Proposición 20 quiere darle vuelta a eso y encerrar a cualquiera por delitos menores también. Esto no se trata de seguridad pública. se trata de salvar los trabajos para los oficiales de las correccionales. Ellos están preocupados de perder su trabajo porque se están cerrando prisiones. He hablado con ellos y sé la inquietud de ellos, pero a la misma vez estoy viendo de que no ha sido beneficioso tener masas de gente encarcelada, especialmente en un año de pandemia. Y sabemos que vamos a ir para otro año más. Ahorita gente se está muriendo en las prisiones por el COVID-19, porque no se puede mantener una distancia. Imagínense otros 5,000 personas por año encarcelados en esos lugares donde se van a estar muriendo. Esto se trata de seguridad, se trata de la salud y se trata de poder ayudar a nuestras comunidades, a estas personas encarceladas que puedan tener lo necesario, salir y rehabilitarse. De eso se trata. No se trata de más encarcelar gente. Gracias.
Gracias, Alex. So you heard it. We're united. We're united for new opportunities, for our community. We're united for the transformation of our Latino community for the better, for better lives, you know, for our families to stay together. And so that's why we're so against Proposition 20. Nos han escuchado a todos. Estamos unidos para mejores oportunidades para nuestra comunidad. Queremos que nuestra comunidad latina salga adelante, que nuestras familias se mantengan unidas y por eso también estamos todos unidos en contra de la Proposición 20. So now we ask the press if you have questions to please put it in the chat box or in the Q&A. I'm not seeing any questions for our speakers yet, but please go ahead and put them in the chat box or in the Q&A. Okay. We'll wait a little bit. Okay. Without question, we just want to tell everybody that you're welcome to connect with any of the panelists around our position against Proposition 20 by reaching out to Will Matthews. He has put his information in the chat box. You can also reach us at Chirla, reaching our Director of Communications, Jorge Mario Cabrera. And both of their contacts are in the chat box. I want to conclude by just saying thank you to everybody who has used their voice and their platform against Proposition 20. Our last message to our community: voten el 3 de noviembre y voten en contra de la Proposición 20. Our community needs to vote on November 3rd, and we need to vote against Proposition 20. Thank you very much.
No a la Proposición 20.
No a la Proposición 20.
No a la Proposición 20. Sí se puede con el voto. Voten el día 3 de noviembre, por favor.